so I don't care. Whatever I said, it's true.
There you go. No, we find it a lot. Oh, good morning, everyone. We got a
Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow.
Xavier's back,
I'm back.
on the show this morning. How's it feel to be back?
Oh,
Xavier?
fantastic.
We missed you.
Fantastic,
We missed you. And
yeah.
we missed all of you because last week, of course, we were on Thanksgiving break.
That's right.
Today,
Yeah,
Mariana. So
yeah.
it's been 2 weeks since we had the opportunity to come talk to this lovely audience of ours. So we're wishing you a beautiful Thursday morning here in Charlottesville, Virginia. We have a very exciting show lined up for you this morning. We're going to be joined very shortly by Carolina Schierholz. She's the owner and baker of Sweet Carolina Cake Studio, Latina entrepreneur
I
here
love
in,
that. I love that.
in Charlottesville,
I love that
which we
sweet
love.
part.
And followed later in the show by Keith Stevens. He's the owner and instructor at Stevens School of Music and the Arts. So I mean, two of our favorite
amazing.
things on the
Absolutely.
show today.
Food,
Dessert, and music.
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah.
we love both of these tremendously. So this is going to be a fantastic show that we have.
All
lined
that's
up for
missing
this
is maybe
morning.
either the wine or the liquor or something, but that's okay.
That's kind of omnipresent in the studio. Let's just put it that way.
That's true. I constantly look at it from here.
Exactly.
That's why I
From
love
your
this
angle,
chair.
it's always there. So
I
you don't
absorb
have to,
it.
You don't have to worry about that. That's for sure. But it's good to be back here on the show. We're excited for some great guests to learn about what they do.
And it's December.
And yes, the first day of December.
It's December 1st, right?
Yep. So you can start. Does this start the
And
countdown
we
like the
have
25
a,
days of?
And the family is growing too, right?
Yep. So it's yes, we have a new. Is that okay to share live?
Yeah.
We have a new little Miller.
That's right,
That
absolutely.
that is now here.
That's so exciting.
So that which is just so exciting. So we've been praying for that for several months now, and just we're glad that it's all happened beautifully. So congratulations to Jerry and Mrs. Miller on their newborn son.
Absolutely.
So we're
Yeah.
very excited about that. We love babies as well.
Especially, you know what? The nice thing is when they're not yours, you don't have to worry about them. You just
It's
just
even
look at
better.
them. They're cute. You hug them, and then at night when they're crying, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, you're not there.
That's
You're
Jerry
home.
and his wife's problem.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today y Mañana. I'm Alex. This is Xavier. We're very excited to have you joining us on a bit of a chilly morning
That's
here in
perfect.
Charlottesville, but it's a perfect morning to
Café con leche.
Café con leche.
Even a hot
your
chocolate.
cozy
I mean, if
spot.
you're not into the café con leche thing, you know
That's
what
true.
I mean?
Yeah, I mean, hot chocolate is fine. Café con leche is the
Well, it's the
classic.
season. December
It
1st
is,
starts
okay,
the
that's
genuine
fair.
season of hot
That's
chocolate. Or
fair.
some people say you can
make
drink it all the time.
peppermint café con leche. Spice it up a little to bring it
Absolutely,
into the
yeah.
holiday season.
Sure.
So there's always a good reason to get something warm, sit down and enjoy some Today y Mañana.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
we're excited to be back.
I'm
this
excited.
week
Yeah, it's been a long time.
It's been a while since I've been on with you. I had
That's
2
right.
weeks with Michael.
I don't know if I've been on vacation or working hard. I can't tell, but either way, I missed this.
We'll go with working hard.
you.
Michael might disagree with that, but we'll go with working. Oh, Nick is here in
I don't
studio.
think Nick should come anymore. Every time I say something, he just has to.
He has to say
the
something.
needles.
He just has to say something. So, and I'm happy to have you back. I don't know.
Thank you, Alex.
if
Thank
the
you.
audience is missing Michael, but I'm happy that you're here. And
Thank you, Jerry.
So is Jerry. So we're back here. We had a beautiful Thanksgiving. Hope that all of you in the audience had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your families and friends as well. We got a lot going on today. We have an exciting show lined up for you. We're going
very
to be
much so.
joined very shortly by Carolina Schierholz. She is the owner and baker at Sweet Carolina Cake Studio. Followed later in the show by Keith Stevens, who is the owner of Stevens School of Music and the Arts. So a lot going on. A little shout out, of course. Love being here on the I Love Seville Network set. Just thanks to our presenter, of course, Emergent Financial Services. And, of course, we love our partners at the Gym Seville. The Gym Seville, you should definitely check it out. This Saturday, December 3rd, starting at 10 a.m., I believe, they will be having their Health and Wellness Expo.
Oh, wow.
So if you're feeling like you need a little health and wellness after a lot of Thanksgiving food, I know that,
Or just before the
or
Christmas.
just before the Christmas holiday.
Exactly.
You have a nice opportunity to learn about all these different. There's going to be a numerous like health and wellness vendors that you
Oh,
can
fantastic.
go meet at the gym. So would definitely encourage people to check that out. Of course, we love partnering with.
And what time was that?
That would be from 10 to 2, I believe it is.
10 to 2. Okay, at the gym.
On Saturday, December 3rd, at the gym.
Okay.
There'll be another one upcoming in February, but the closest one is this Saturday
All right.
at the gym, Seaville. Of course, we love partnering with Castle Hill Cider, with Aquasivo Hand Car Wash, with our friends at Credit Serious Insurance, and of course with Forward Adelante, the premier Latino networking group here in Charlottesville, Virginia. So I mean, we got a lot to cover today, but I'm looking forward to it.
No, me too. You know, as you know, and deep in your heart, that anytime there's sweets and as you said, music. I mean, those
I
are
mean,
the two of the
it's-
things that we enjoy the most. So
Exactly, two of our favorite things.
It's great to talk about it and discuss it with people that also have the same passion.
Exactly. That's what we love to do here on Today Mañana. So I don't know about you, but I'm ready to jump right in.
Absolutely, no, yes.
Alrighty, let's do it. So we're really excited to welcome to the show this morning Carolina Shearholt. She is the owner and the baker at Sweet Carolina Cakes Studio. Carolina, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me here.
Good morning. Buenos dias.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias. So, I mean, for those who haven't met you before, this is the first time learning about you, how did you first sort of become interested in baking? How did you first develop that love?
Well, I was thinking that, and I was like, there are different stages. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I was 10, I was baking cookies and I was burning them, and I was
Did you
like,
say burning them?
Yes,
Oh,
burning
okay.
them. My brother was eating
I
them
did
no
that too.
matter what.
That's
and
why I
was like-
stopped.
but that got me into, I have to keep trying because everybody makes cookies. How can I burn them all the time? So, I kept going. And then later in life, like around 17, 18, my mother saw that, I wanted to learn. So she sent me to this lady to learn the basics, whipped cream and dulce de leche and, how to, but she had a bakery. So she was teaching me you got to put the cake in a box and all that stuff. And so, and then I came to the States as an exchange student. That's how I met my husband. And I kind of forgot about baking, then went back to El Salvador, went to university to study graphic design, finished my career, then got back to my sweetheart, and got married, came to the States, and I was bored because he was in the military. And I got a job as a graphic designer, but I was a publication coordinator, so I was not doing creative stuff. So close to where we live, there was a bakery, and my husband's like, hey, do you know there's a bakery there? They sell stuff. Huh? Let me check it out. So I bought a book, and it was Vincent Carey with, amazing cakes. And so I was like, wow, these cakes are gorgeous, and you can eat them. And I was bored at home on the weekends because my husband was training in the military National Guard.
Right.
And so I decided to start exploring and tasting and trying and finding recipes and then bringing them into work. And everybody was like, Carolina, this is good. Or some will joke and say, oh, this is not good. You got to keep trying. Oh, this is still not good. Bring it next week. But it was true. I was testing recipes, and I had a friend from New Orleans, and I was like, do you know about red velvet cake? And he's like, yeah, okay, can you be my tester? So I would make a recipe, and he'd, no, not there yet. And I would make it another, until I think you
mastered.
got it.
Yeah.
So all my recipes, that was like 12 years ago.
So all of them have been practiced.
Wow. Yeah.
Many times until I say, yes, this is the one I can give the customer.
That's amazing because you just assume, right, that you pick up a book and there's the recipe, boom, do it, and it comes out perfect. And I know by experiences that's not the case, right? I mean, there's always nuances that you need to know also about, where you live, whether there's a lot of humidity, less humidity, and things of that sort. That's important,
And just
right?
doing it over
so
and over
doing
again
it over until
the
you
way to
get it
master
right
it.
where you live is so important.
Yeah, especially the ones that you don't like, because I personally don't like chocolate, so I'm like, how am I going to create a chocolate? So I got one, and I still wasn't, and then at a show, I met this chef. He was so nice, and I asked him, do you have a chocolate recipe? He's like, yeah, and he started writing it from top of his head.
Wow.
I was like, wow, and that's the one I still make until this day. That's the only one, and I love it. It's Black Magic, and he said, it's in the internet everywhere, so anybody can have good chocolate. And I was like, that's so nice that he's
is nice.
sharing. But he says that it's a recipe that's from 1950s that was in the back of the Hershey.
Wow.
Oh,
Imagine.
okay.
Yeah, so it's
Sometimes
not,
those are the ones.
you know, it's not like you don't want to share your recipes. No, it's like, it's there. If you want to spend some time, make it.
Exactly.
Now,
So-
let me.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're probably going to ask a good question.
No, I was curious. At what point did you decide, hey, you know what? I want to make this into a business. I want to actually.
Well, it wasn't me. It was kind of like one of my, what was she? One of the editors, because it was a publication company I used to work with, and she came to me and she was going to get married, and she's like, hey, Carolina, I went to a bridal show, and there are people that make cakes for weddings, and I think you could do this, and she gave me the card of the bridal show, and I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So the next year, I went and checked it out, and I'm like, I saw these ladies presenting their beautiful cakes, and, you know, I was like, hey, I think I want to do that. So the next year, this has been years, I brought my husband and I said, hey, I want you to come with me and look at this lady, look what she does. She puts cakes on the, you know, on a 10 by 10 booth, and she makes cakes for brides, and I think I want to. And he's like, okay, you think you can do it? He's like, I only have one thing. You got to give your 100%. I said, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So that's how it actually started. So then I started designing a logo and a brochure and hiring a photographer.
All the behind-the-scenes
Wow.
work.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
to
yeah.
make
Yeah.
it a business. You know, okay, what am I going to name it? And I'm like, oh, my dad used to sing Sweet Caroline when I was a little Yeah, one day my dad's going to be gone and I want to remember him. And so that was kind of honoring him. Plus, he also sent me to the States to learn English. So that was kind of, I tied my dad, my business, my life.
Together.
No, that's fantastic.
That's
That's
fantastic.
fantastic.
You had a
Yeah.
lot of fans watch the show this morning. Juan Torres Douglas says, Saludos, Carolina, from Washington, D.C.
Oh,
He's
Juan
watching
Torres.
us.
Oh, yeah.
Vanessa Nolastro says, great, that you are great, Carolina Gerald. She says she sends you claps. And then
Claps.
Rocio Cuellar says, Felicidades, prima bendiciones. And we also have Moises Tistina watching the show this morning, as well as Janet Fabian. So there are a lot of fans
Absolutely. Absolutely.
watching the show
They
this
probably had
morning.
the cake and then did good, right?
Exactly.
So I do want to ask. Well, I really have multiple questions, but when it comes to sweets, I have so many questions. But anyway, I did go online and I saw some of your cakes, right? And it's got like all this decoration, like the flowers and stuff like that, which I wouldn't even know how to start doing that. So my question is that something that you started to do? Did you know how to do that, or did that take a long time to learn?
It did, but it didn't, because in art school I learned all that. So
Okay,
there
okay.
was like 3 semesters of just called techniques, technique 1, técnica 2, técnica 3. And so you learn in a different media. So I learned how to do it in sculpting, you know, or just paper. Like a lot of flowers, I go back to my teacher teaching us how to do 3D flowers in paper.
Okay.
And so now it just translates because it's edible paper. So it's
Yeah,
kind
but that's got to be, I mean, one thing is working with paper, one thing is, I assume that's frosting that you're creating the flowers and all that, right?
Yeah, but it's amazing to see how it's just edible. It's like, you know, I think the people that actually make those are like watching the artists out there and like, oh, I can make that media into an edible media.
Gotcha.
Because, for example, there's a lace that you put on a cake, and they came up with this material that it you know, so thin that you put it into the silicone mold, and when you pull it out, it's edible. So
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah.
That's great. It's incredible. Yeah, they look so beautiful. The wedding cakes and the.
Yeah, you feel like you really shouldn't cut into them. I mean,
I know,
you
well, it's
just-
like a
you
piece
just
of
gotta
art.
keep-
You know, so
Exactly.
you're like,
It's
oh,
you don't want to do
but
that.
I want to taste it so bad.
Yeah, I think that's what drew me, because that book, that's what it is. I was like, I can't believe that's a cake.
Yeah.
Because it had lace, it had beautiful roses, and I'm like, wow. So that got my attention.
So I know wedding cakes is one of them. What are some of the other, festivities or items that people can say, yeah, I would love to have a cake for this? What other things do you do?
Well, when I first started, it was the logo says specialty occasion cakes, because, you know, when you have a special occasion, you want something more than just the cake with turrón. We call it turrón, the buttercream or whatever. So when there's a special occasion, somebody wants something more than normal that you can buy at a bakery. So that's why I'm like, I'm not a baker because I don't have cakes ready for you to walk in.
Yeah.
But if you come to me 6 months in advance, we'll design, we'll sketch, what do you want, or this can't be done, or this, we could do this, and we go from there. And then the day off, it's amazing, it's beautiful, and it tastes good. So.
Now, do you ever have anybody that wants, instead of the turrón, which is the butter, I guess, what is it, buttercream?
Buttercream.
Right? Do you have anybody ever ask for merengue?
Well,
frosting?
That's a funny thing because I would say 3 years ago, I finally dipped into the Swiss merengue, which is a compromise in between a turrón that's from El Salvador, that is just egg whites, and has butter. And it tastes so yummy and good. So we please the Latino community with that Swiss merengue. And the other one I call it the American buttercream, the regular, which is Crisco butter and sugar.
Okay.
And I mean, they're both good. It's just
but I know he is
I'm a merengue. I love merengue.
Merengue.
Yeah. So when you put merengue on a cake, it's like, that's like going to heaven, dying, going to heaven, then going to heaven again. I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah, I think merengue, the problem is it doesn't stay in its whatever you want it to stay. It does whatever it wants.
It has its own personality.
Yeah.
Yes, and so by adding the butter, the Swiss people found out that, hey, you can pipe flowers, you can do, And so the lady that actually taught me many years ago, she was always like, Carolina, you got to try it. And I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to mess up with that. But I finally said, you know what, let me try it. And I did try it, and I loved it. But you have to cook the egg whites and all. There's more into it, so that's why
it's a little more work. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But to please my Latino community, I have to offer it because
I think it's a good idea to please the community Latino. I mean, I think that's fabulous.
You love pleasing the Latino community. It's almost as though you're Latino.
Almost, yeah.
More feds. Moises Cristina says saludos. Carla Lara gives you more claps. Thank you, John Blair, watching the show this morning. Wayne Cozart watching the show this morning. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning on Today Mañana. So, I'm curious. So, I guess people can do birthdays, quinceañeras.
You said that very well. Say it again.
Quinceañeras.
Did
I pull that off right? Okay,
pulled it off perfectly.
Yeah, quinceañeras are really big here. I didn't think so because I just normally my customers are not Latino, even though I have Latino friends. But this year I made a lot of quinceañera cakes. So one of my husband's coworkers said, how come your wife doesn't have a page for quinceañera in the website? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's interesting. So in December when it's downtime, I will make a page just for quinceañeras.
Just for that, yeah, because I would imagine that's
great. I mean, it's even better, right? Because quinceañera, and then you got the sweet 16, so you can cover everything. You got 15, 16, create something for 17. Yep. We'll find something.
Yeah.
Juan Torres Douglas says your cakes are amazing. No. So
Thank you.
We got audience evidence as well of that. Out of curiosity, what has been some of the challenges on the entrepreneur side, be having your own business that you have to do other things for? Any advice that you might have for people that say, hey, I would love to be a small business person myself?
I think time management. I'm always listening to podcasts about time management because when you have a family, it's so hard because you want to pour your heart into the business and then you can neglect your family and forget that there's a husband there and there's a daughter and how to juggle everything. It's hard because when you go to a job 9 to 5, when you're home, supposedly, right? Some don't bring laptop home, but I didn't. So when I transitioned, it's hard because you're trying to squeeze the bacon in between your life, but it's a mess. So you have to understand how do you say no to things so I can have time to take my daughter to an event and not take too many orders and that kind of stuff.
No, it's a challenge I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have is to you want to say yes to everything.
Yes,
it's
correct.
I can't turn down a job. It's like,
especially when it's beautiful cake. I'm like, I want to make it.
Well, the other thing I suspect is that my suspicion is that the majority of events happen on weekends, right? So there you are.
Correct.
You can't make a cake on Monday and deliver on Saturday, right? So, or Sunday, you have to kind of make it a day before or on the same day. And so that makes it a little more difficult, I suspect.
Yeah, and especially what you said. It's like when we first started, I told my husband, "Are you willing to give up weekends?" Because I knew weddings happen on Saturdays, and he said, "Well, that's fine because in his other job." Before the military, he worked on weekends, and that's why I was left alone because he was bartending, and I was alone home. It's like, what do I do? So I pour myself into learning how to make cakes. So he said, well, you can rest on Monday, which is a big lie because on Monday I'm ordering ingredients.
True, it's true.
It's how it is. It's the entrepreneur. There's all the things that go on. Like we see the finished result, right? We see the beautiful cakes, and we're like, oh, look, that's the work. But then there's also all the work that goes on behind the scenes to make the beautiful cake even get there.
That's
the
right,
ingredients
exactly.
get there, the tools you need to get there. Putting the orders in, collecting them is a lot that goes
now
into it.
I tease my husband when I'm not working, and I tell him, guess what? My boss gave me the afternoon off. Or guess what? They let me, the military gave passes. So I said, guess what? I got a 3-day pass. I tried not to take any orders this weekend so I can have some time with you guys. So
That's wonderful.
That's
important.
important.
That's important. Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah.
It's very important. So when people reach out, what's kind of the process if someone says, okay, I'm getting married, I would love Carolina to make my wedding. What's sort of the process of someone's reaching out to you, working with you? How long does that take? What are some of the things you do?
Well, I would say the first thing is a tasting because if it's a small cake, it's mostly people that already know me. They already try my cakes, so they're just like, oh, I remember in such party I had the Italian cream. Can you make it? I'm having my daughter's birthday, blah blah, and this is the design I want. But if it's somebody that doesn't even know me or never had any of my cakes, like all my brides that come from the bridal show, they schedule a tasting, and that's where we start. Because at the show it's so brief, it's 2 seconds. People just grab the card and like, oh, there's our beautiful cakes, and I'll call you. Okay. So I tried to make it easy in the website they just reach via phone, via email, or just a click, and they can contact me to have a tasting. And at the tasting, before that, we go back and forth with emails. What flavors would you like to try? When is the wedding? Very important because I might be
Next
already
week.
booked. Yeah, exactly. So most of the time is between 3 and 6 months. Depends on if they already have the venue. That's more important. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's probably that's part of the process. Like you said, you have to figure out what it is they like, right? What is it they want, and then see if you can create that magic cake that they want.
Yes, correct.
Absolutely. Another fan, Maria Rosa Calvo, says, muchas felicidades, Carolina, por sus éxitos. We agree completely. We agree. Estamos de acuerdo, María. Gracias por mirar el programa hoy. So, Carolina, before we let you go, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you, find out more? Where can they go to find you?
Well, Facebook, people know me that I don't log into Facebook that much, but I am there. So, you can just send a message and eventually, Messenger, it gets there. But the best is email, info@sweet-carolina.com, or go to the website, Sweet Carolina with the dash, because that's a problem. People can't find me because they forget the dash. Sweet-carolina.com. Through the website, you can send contact, or, there's phone numbers there too, or Instagram too.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
I think I'm more active in Instagram now. So
Yeah, a lot of
I know
people.
a lot of
wedding.
wedding people anything related to wedding or beautiful pictures.
Pictures,
Pictures.
right?
I mean, you want the pictures.
yeah, I
of the
think it's
cakes.
the pictures. Yeah,
And
and
then-
it's an instant, communication.
Exactly.
For some reason, you're always on Instagram. So
Absolutely.
that's where they can find it.
Super easy. Sweet Carolina on Instagram, Facebook, Sweet.
And Instagram is Sweet Carolina Cake Studio. And
Sweet
Facebook
Carolina Tate
too.
Studio. Sweet Carolina Tate Studio on Instagram and Facebook. Sweet-Carolina.com
Correct.
on the internet, and you can see when you go to the website, you will see all the gorgeous pictures. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
they're amazing. They really are.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Absolutely.
Can't end it better. Juan Torres Douglas says, so proud of you. So, I mean,
thank
your
you.
your community is very proud, and they should be. They should be, because it's fantastic to have just amazing Latina entrepreneurs like you here doing these fantastic things.
Thank you.
So, Carolina, thanks so much for joining
Thank you
us.
very
It's
much.
been
Yeah,
Thank
this
you
has
for
been a lot of fun.
inviting
absolute
me.
pleasure. No, it's been so much fun. Thanks
Thank
for
you so
coming on.
much. Nice talking to you guys.
Same here.
So, I mean, can
You know,
beat
you
it?
know,
I
it's,
just-
it's you know, I try to remember back when I was married, right, and what you guys go through, and what we went through, and how things have changed, because now there's, you know, you have all these people that make these wonderful cakes, and you go taste them, and you see what you want, and I mean, honestly, don't remember. I mean. Maybe Jan may remember better, my wife, but I think we just went one place because that's where everybody went, got their cake, boom, done, right? So for me, it was
No,
better
it's
because
different.
I don't have to taste things.
yeah,
But,
no, it's a different world.
but it's a different world, yeah, and it's good though, because it does allow you to be creative in what you're doing for your particular wedding, you know,
Exactly.
and you can then also highlight your flavors, your taste, what you
And
like.
think about it, everyone's going to be great at a certain thing. Like a lot of wedding cake may not, a lot of wedding people who make wedding cakes may not know the merengue. So I mean,
True.
if you were looking for that, you'd be like, well, I would love to have that, but my other three options, my only three options, only do buttercream.
Exactly,
Right? Because they never
exactly.
learned that, because they're not from El Salvador, where the Latino
That's right.
world, the merengue is just such a
Important part, yeah,
it's
of-
such a
of sweets,
significant
yeah,
part of
exactly.
sweets, right? So if you're not from that, or you're not from Europe, you may not know how to make that one.
Exactly.
So, you know, in your day, it may have been like, well, I would love to have this, but my only option doesn't make it.
Yeah,
right?
the Cuban places
So-
I know, it's just they didn't make big wedding cakes. It's just
Yeah.
little meringues.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you wanted 100 little wedding cakes that were nothing but a sweet meringue, that would work, the Tower of Meringue.
Exactly.
Somehow I don't think Mama would have gone for that.
I don't think so either.
I don't think Mr. Zerby would have gone for that one. So it's just, but it's beautiful to see people who pursue their passion. And she
Yeah.
just realized she loved it and said, you know what? And to have supportive people like her husband to say, do it and do it 100%.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. And that's so important. That's the important part. Yeah.
it is, because there's so much work that goes into it that you do have to make that devotion and say, hey, I'm going to go for this 100%.
Exactly.
And from one fantastic entrepreneur, talking about passion, things we love especially, to another, we're excited to swap from sweets to one of our other favorite things, which is music.
Music,
And
that's right.
welcome to the show this morning, Keith Stevens. He is the owner of the Stevens School of Music and the Arts. Keith, thanks so much for joining us this
Good
morning.
morning.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
No, we're glad to have you on. So for those who aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How do you kind of develop a passion for music and then the desire to turn that into teaching?
Well, I've been playing music most of my life, and I ended up going to study music in college, and then I ended up actually teaching in the music department at James Madison University. I was the classical guitar professor there for 26 years.
Wow, okay.
And my wife is a pianist, and she played all of her life, and my wife was a teacher, and we both just my wife would teach out of the home. I was teaching at the university, and we one of our goals when we first got married was we always said that we would love to have our own music school to be able to offer that service to our community. So eventually, about 1993, my wife was teaching out of the home, and I started also picked up a couple of days teaching. And it was just the two of us. I teach guitar, all types of guitar. My wife teaches piano. And then the more and more clients we had, they started asking us, well, do you know anybody who teaches the violin or teaches the drums or other instruments that we didn't teach? So we decided, oh, okay, so maybe we can expand this into a larger business. And so then it started to become a business. So I ended up going to a workshop in Vancouver, actually, to help people like me who know how to teach and play music, but we don't know how to run a business. So they helped. There was lots of us there, and they helped us learn how to do the business side of it. And so we actually expanded into a building from our house that's on our property. Used to be an old auto restoration shop, quite a big one, and but it wasn't in service anymore. So we actually renovated it and turned it into a school. and it's quite large. And started hiring other instructors who taught other instruments. So there are currently about 10 of us there who teach
Wow.
on a variety of instruments. We teach guitar, piano, drums, violin, viola, cello, just about every instrument that most people really want to learn. Ukulele, you know.
So are there, in this large place that you have, studio place, are there compartments?
Yes, we
where-
have 5. We have a waiting room, and we have 5 different actual studios, rooms that you teach in that are quite.
Because I'm trying to
quite
think
large.
that somebody's practicing the
Right.
drums and somebody's playing the piano and the violin.
Yes.
It's like,
Yep.
wait a minute.
Well, it's big, and there's a long hallway, and there are rooms on each side of the hallway. And when we built it, we made sure that the rooms were as soundproof as they could be.
Okay.
Because I taught in a place where there was a drummer next to me, and it was like having a paper wall, and you just couldn't. So we thought, well, we're going to do this. We're going to do it right. So we. Fortunately, my wife's brother is a builder, so he helped us out. So between this help the soundproofing drywall and the sound panels and everything, the rooms are pretty soundproof. So you don't have that a little bit, but not too much. And then the drums are set off to it. The drum room is set off to a different part of the building.
You got to segregate those drummers. You got to get to
Yeah. Well, when those drums get going, you can.
when they get into
But
it.
that's it. I mean, that's if you go to a music school and you walk up and down the halls, that's what you want to hear. You want to hear
Exactly.
music.
Exactly.
So it's like
Absolutely.
we try to make them as soundproof as possible, but you're going to hear music if you come into the building, and that's
That's what you want to hear.
Exactly.
That's
That's
what you
what's
wanna
so
hear when
wonderful.
you go
Yeah,
there.
and the people who sit in the waiting room just love it. They can hear all kinds of pianos and guitars and drums and all kinds of stuff. So it's really great.
So what is the instrument that most people go for first?
Piano.
Piano?
Especially parents who want to get their kids started in music. Most of them will have them start on piano. Guitar is a close second.
Okay.
So the bulk of the students that we have are piano and guitar. And then drums is usually the one that's last because the parents.
Parents don't want
More
the
of a
drum
parent
set
decision
in
than
the
a child.
house.
But we have a couple of days worth of drum students. We have quite a lot of drum students. So, but piano is usually because especially if you're starting, and we usually recommend, especially with younger kids, piano is a good instrument to start on because it gives you a good musical foundation, and as well as you don't have to worry about holding the instrument.
I was just
things
gonna
like
say,
that.
it's probably just have to-
So
Yeah.
even a 5-year-old can sit up to the piano and play without
play.
having. Yeah, sometimes like with the guitars or things, or violin, it's a lot of it's just holding the instrument. So if a 5 or 6-year-old wants to play guitar, then we might say, well, let's start on ukulele. Because
so
it's
something
a smaller
smaller.
instrument, it's easier to deal with, and then you can move on later. So
Interesting. Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
part of.
Yeah.
A lot of it depends on the age of the student.
Yeah.
And I feel like, as I play the piano, and I remember when I haven't learned the guitar yet, but I have one from my cousin that I would dabble with trying to learn it. And the big difference is I think you get a little more confidence with the piano, because with the piano you can make a tune with one hand working.
Right.
With a stringed instrument, if both hands aren't kind of working together, there's
Right,
only
that's
so much you can do.
That's a good point. If you're on the piano, then you're gonna start to make music that sounds more like music at an earlier point than like if you're playing the guitar or the violin, where it's going to take much longer to get to that point. And especially with kids, if it takes too long, then they're gonna lose interest in it. So you have to keep their interest. So that's another reason we usually recommend that for younger kids.
A good starting point.
Yeah.
Now, are there classes for kids of what are typical age groups that people? I mean, if someone wants to come in as an adult and say, like, okay, I'd love to learn this instrument, are there
Sure.
both types of classes?
Well, all the lessons are one-on-one, so it's all just individual. We don't offer classes. So we have all ages of students from 5 to 85, right? And so the nice thing about having a lesson being one-on-one is it will move at the pace of the student, and we can individualize the curriculum to what the student really wants to learn. There are certain things that they have to learn, but some students will want, especially adults, they have an idea of this is a style of music I want to learn, so we can do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the one-on-one is,
No,
so
that's the best
important.
one. Yeah, no, that's.
It's so important.
Yeah.
That's how you learn at your own pace, and it would be. I remember.
And you can give more individualized attention too. I mean, I've taught many classes, and And with a class, you always have to teach really kind of towards the middle of it. So
Exactly.
you have somebody who's advanced or somebody who's lagging behind. You can't sit down with them on an individual basis. So the one-on-one works a lot better.
Yeah, just even as I remember music class in school versus music with my piano teacher. In school, if I'm sitting there, I would love to learn, Claire de Lune, and I'm practicing that with my piano teacher, and they're still at like Kumbaya. I'm like, Kumbaya's great, but
Right.
So I'm not really going in that direction. I'm trying
Right.
to go for something that's a little more enjoyable to me. So a couple people watching. Maddie Dunnels Forniter, thanks for watching the show this morning. Tiffany Rosales, thanks for watching the show this morning. So what? I'm curious, what's been kind of the experience on the entrepreneur side of like running the school in addition to doing the teaching? How's
Right.
that been?
Well, it's a business, and I'm so thankful that I actually did the workshop where we learned how to run the business side, because there is a point where, if you're dealing with the teaching side and the artistic side, it's different than doing the business side, because every small business deals with the same issues, and we're no exception. So there is a fine line where sometimes you have to put the artistic side, put it aside for a minute while you're just dealing with this business thing, and like every business we run into, all the same issues of, if you're having to dealing with weather or, there's payments and things like that. So, and you have to separate that. That was one of the things they told us at this workshop, was that, musicians, artists tend to be very emotional, and you want to make sure everybody's very happy. And it's like, but sometimes when you're running a business, you have to be really pretty business savvy, and you can't get too much into that. You have to separate a little bit. So that was what they were there to help us with. So.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be tough with certain clients.
Right.
That's probably the most difficult part. The rest
Exactly.
is like it's just numbers. Make sure everything is straight. And you got
Sure.
whatever expenses
Sure.
are, whatever the income
Yep,
is.
it's
and
the
things
same
like that.
issues as every other small business.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it's a labor of love, and it's grown over the years. I mean, we started maybe 20 some students, and now we have roughly about 180 students.
That's
Who
amazing.
come through
That really
each
is
who come
amazing.
through each week.
Yeah.
On a regular, Monday through Friday. And it's a lot of people to juggle. But it's fantastic, and we have the best staff of teachers who work for us. I mean, our business is only as good as the people who work for us, and we have a wonderful staff of teachers who, they're really invested in the education of the kids. Not only in that they're learning music, but they're having fun. You have to make it fun, and the
Yeah.
kids come in, and I just love to see it every week. They come in and they're smiling and they're happy and they're laughing and they're having a good time. And I can hear the teachers and they're teaching and they're having a good time. And yeah, so it's just a really very positive environment for kids. And we live out in Fluvanna County, so we're in a rural area, and so one of the things we found was that if anybody wanted to take music lessons, they either had to go to Richmond or they had to come into Charlottesville. There wasn't really anything in our area, so we figured, well, this is a good area to do it.
Absolutely.
So we have been able to build up a nice, steady, and very loyal clientele. And you become friends with these clients because they're your neighbors as well.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell me, what are the pros and cons of children versus adults in teaching? Because it's got to be a different mindset.
Sure,
I
it
suspect.
absolutely is. When you're teaching children, it's a little bit more work because you have to, you have to be entertaining. We always make the joke that you have to kind of put the clown suit on sometimes. But it's so much fun, and we just love working with kids, and kids are just so spontaneous, and they'll do and say things that you never thought of, and they're so creative, and you just have to tap into that, and you just have to let them be who they are,
Yeah.
and let them experience and enjoy music the way that they do. With adults, it's a different mindset because most of the adults are there because it's something that they've always wanted to do, or maybe they've dabbled with music in the past, and now they wanted to take it a little bit more seriously. So they generally are a little bit more self-driven. They know what they want to do. I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to play this type of music. And so they're a little bit easier to guide because they're a little bit more self-guided. And then, of course, the conversation is a little different. When you're dealing, it's kind of nice because a lot of times most of our adult students are later in the evening. So by the time you get later in the evening, you get a little tired and you can relax a little bit more. You're not up and down and on the floor and stuff like that. So it's really nice. But yet you develop these relationships with these adult students as well, and they become, friends as well. And it's really nice to see. Adults who are like all of us, you're busy. You have a busy life. They have families, they have jobs, but they make room for their music lessons every week. And there are some weeks they'll come in and I didn't get a chance to do much. It's like, well, I know. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, but you just keep going.
Exactly.
Don't stop. Don't stop. And even if you didn't get to play much this week, come in anyway, because there's always something to learn. And we have recital showcases twice a year. As a matter of fact, next Saturday, December 10th, is our winter recitals, and we have recitals going on throughout the day at a
That's
local
important,
church.
I think, to be able to build that confidence and know that you can play in front of people.
Right, and it's so nice because our recitals are they're a mixture of different ages and instruments, and they're so much fun, and the kids actually come to us and say, "When's the next recital? I want to play." And we have adults do as well. They'll play on the recitals as well, but they really enjoy it, and it's a positive experience for them. And we do that twice a year, and then throughout the year we have an award system that we have called the Musical Ladder that we do, and it's like short-term goals where they can earn wristbands and certificates that they can test for. So it's like shorter-term goals in between when we do the recitals.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm curious for parents out there who are considering getting their children to play a musical instrument. What are some of the important reasons? What are some of the benefits of having that you've seen of having your child learn to play a musical instrument?
Well, the benefits of being involved in music is self-expression, confidence, just developing that confidence to work at something. You have to work on something week after week, and then a goal, short-term goals, the confidence performing, music expression. I mean, kids are expressive. Kids are so expressive, and it's just an outlet for them to do that. And we're always so surprised that just these kids will come in and they'll be maybe they're quiet or they're introverted a little bit. And as soon as they get involved in music and start playing music, they just come out of their shells. And then, music itself there are countless studies on how good it is for your brain.
Yeah.
And, I hear so many parents say, their grades are getting better and their math grades getting better. I mean, it's like, a lot of it is just, it's just that studying of music. And you don't realize that's happening because you're just having fun doing it. But it's a wonderful side effect that, again, there are countless studies that show kids who are heavily involved in music get better grades, have better self-confidence. They go on and become leaders in the communities and run their own businesses and things like that.
Well,
even if they don't go study music, I mean, because
Exactly.
very few of the students. I mean, we're not Juilliard or anything, so we're not a very small percentage of the kids who come through our school and maybe graduate high school and go into a music degree or anything like that, but they do continue to play music regardless of what they do.
Yeah, you bring it with you. It benefits your life no matter what field you go into.
Exactly.
You don't actually have to go into the musical field. It just it continues to reap benefits
Exactly.
years
Well,
later.
as you mentioned, it's an expression, right? So it's a way for you. I see you also. It's also sometimes it's a stress relief. It's been a tough day.
That's a
and
big
they play
part.
the piano, and it releases that stress because now you're doing something you enjoy.
Absolutely.
And you listen to it, and it's creative.
Yeah, there's so much of that. That's the conversation we have so much with adult students is, it's so nice that after a long day of work or something, they'll, in the evening they'll sit down and it's like, well, I sat down, I thought, well, I'll play for 15 minutes. And the next thing you know, an hour goes by, and it's just, and that's what we always remind them, just remember you're doing this for fun. It's a stress release and it is, for adults.
The feelings are just so wonderful to express it and to just listen to the music that you were creating.
Well, and music is so cultural. You know, I mean, there's all the different styles of music, and there's so much to learn even just from that side of it. Just listening and being introduced to different styles of music, and of course, different styles, different cultures, different historical aspects. So there's so much more than just, you know, learning the tactile, putting your hands on the instrument. There's so much more to it than that. You know, it's just like any form of art. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, it's
And
never,
I mean, it's one of those things that if you enjoy it, and the more you do it, the better you become, right?
Yep.
And so it's also confidence builder,
Yep.
and you feel better. And you know, I mean, the one thing I always say, you know, obviously, piano is the one. We were talking about this before. Unfortunately, piano is one of those instruments you can't take it with you if you go into a party. But if you got a guitar or something else, you go there, you start singing, especially during Christmas. If you want to sing a couple of Christmas songs, it's great.
My father was a amateur accordion player.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and he was quite good.
Those are good.
It was funny because I was talking to Carolina, and just telling you, my father was a baker. We had a family bakery growing up. It was a German style bakery, but for his stress release, he played the accordion, and every party that was he had to bring his accordion because it just became the central part, so he could take it everywhere he needed to go. So yeah, that's for most instruments you can put them on your back and take them where you want to go, except for piano.
Yeah,
It's interesting. My wife's father, right, and all his brothers, they were very musical, and they never even have. My wife's father never took a lesson in his life. He would hear a song and play it on the piano, and he had the same thing. He had the accordion, and his fingers are going. He's going like this, and I'm saying, and that sounds exactly like this song. And I'm saying, how does he do that? But it was great because they all get together and they are singing Sicilian songs, Italian songs, Christmas songs.
And he has the accompaniment.
Yeah, and it was
It breaks door wherever you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up in that atmosphere. My mother was from Scotland, and so all her large family, and they all lived in the area. So there was always a lot of people over our house singing, and my dad was playing. So that was the musical environment my brother and I grew up in. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Keith, before we let you go, where can people find out more? Find out about the school? Maybe sign up.
Well, you can go to our website, which is www.stevenschoolofmusic.com, and that's Stevens with a V, Stevens, stevenschoolofmusic.com. All the contact info, you can email us from there, you can call us from there. We are on Facebook and we are on Instagram, so you can also reach us through those social medias as well.
Fantastic. I would really encourage people to check it,
Oh,
especially
yes,
if you have
absolutely.
children.
Yeah.
It is such a beautiful. I am so grateful that I learned the piano at a young age because it continues to pay dividends your entire life.
It helps in so many ways. Hand-eye coordination. You're learning a language because you're reading while you're playing, and you can just see it's true. The development that they have is just it just explodes really, across the board.
Yeah, and it really is a labor of love. We just, I mean, it's like any small business entrepreneur. It's a lot of work, but we just love it.
That's
From
the
day
best.
to day, we
That's
get
the
to
best.
we get to do what we want to do, and we get to spend time with all these students. So it's wonderful.
And you get to hear almost music all day long.
Well, yeah, we do. I mean, when you teach music, you have to, you understand. Because I mean, a lot of times, especially adults, I'm sure this is driving you crazy or something. It's like, no, it's all just it's so wonderful. Even the small steps from one week to the next, you can appreciate that, and it's there's never any of that, looking at my watch or anything like that. That's never part of it. It's just you just enjoy any small steps they make from one week to the next.
And that's true.
Fantastic. Well, Keith, thanks so much for joining
Thank
us.
you.
It's
Yeah.
been
Thank you so
an absolute
much.
pleasure.
Thank you for
keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Of course, it's fantastic.
Yes, thank you so much.
Shout out Tom Kelly, Trustworthy Pizza, who was on with us last show, not last week, but last show. Thanks for watching this morning. Now, what a fantastic show! Just
No, it is. Yeah.
you love the passion. You love that just the entrepreneurs who love doing what they do.
Yeah. I mean, something like that. Truly, I mean, here you are. You love music, and you play music, and now you're teaching it and
Sharing it with others.
and sharing that with others, seeing them blossom. Right, eventually, that's just fantastic. It's one of those things where that one instrument that I always kind of worry about I guess it might be others, but is the violin, because the squeakiness of a violin can really sometimes just annoy you if it's not done right. It's like, oh God, this is going to be a long
But then
time.
once it's good, it's beautiful.
Once it's good, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I mean, but I guess all instruments to a certain respect, right? I mean, the trumpet and
Yep.
the flute and all that. They can be a little squeaky, and the piano is probably the one that's, like you said, you learn.
Like I said, you can get to
Yeah.
Kumbaya quicker on the piano
Absolutely.
than any other instrument.
Kumbaya.
And at least, now you may get sick of Kumbaya, but at least your kid will get to Kumbaya very
Well, there's
quickly.
there's that piano piece that you guys learned when you were young. I always forget what it's called. Ding, 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 ding,
Oh,
ding,
the
ding.
hearts, yeah.
I love that. I mean, I was every time you guys played that, I said, "This is great.
This is
I love
great.
that."
Oh, they're
They actually
geniuses
got it
already.
now.
They actually got it. Maybe by the 100th time.
No,
Our mom was
it's
like,
a tune.
"Not
It's a
this
tune
again."
that I love so much that
Yeah.
I didn't care you practicing, right? And actually, most of what you played, I enjoy. Every once in a while, we have one of our sons play something.
Oh,
It's like, what is that?
Nick says it's called Heart and Soul by Hody Tormato.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick. He would know that, and he would know that, and also message me in the middle of the show to let us know. He would send us a comment to let us know what the name of that
Heart and Soul.
song is. Heart and Soul by Hody Tormato.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fantastic show.
been
I know it's been a while since we talked a little finance, you and I. I know,
Well-
Michael, anything that people should be aware of that's going on? in
So
the news that
I'm not
helps?
so sure about being aware of, right? Other than I think this is a very spectacular year in one way, right? So when was the last time that we saw bonds do so terrible in a year? And it's a very, very long time ago, right?
So-
because most of the time.
To be clear, not spectacular in a good way, but spectacular in
In a bad way, yeah.
In
In
a
other
bad
words,
way, like-
in other words, bonds are down because interest rates have risen so quickly, right? And what I tell people is that if you remember back in the 70s, interest rates were about 6% and they went to about 10, 11%, right? But think about it. If you're earning 6% interest and they go to 11, you're still ahead by 1%, right? In the sense of interest-wise, right?
Yeah.
Certainly the price of the bond goes down. But here was a year where you started literally almost at zero,
Zero.
and they've gone to 4, 5, 6, 7, depending
you
on where.
have no income on
So
your
exactly.
bonds to
So there was no
compensate.
cushion. However, that has created an opportunity which I think most people don't probably realize. In some cases, it may not be able to take advantage of, but it's called tax loss harvesting, right? In other words, tax loss harvesting is is very easy to do in fixed income. And in the old days, for example, people that own municipal bonds, they'd like trade one muni. Let's say you had a loss of about, let's say $1,000 or a loss on a municipal bond.
And just to be clear, that's the bond of a city.
Of a
So,
city, yeah.
Instead of buying a U.S. Treasury bond, which is the federal government, you buy the bond of a city which has tax benefits for you.
Exactly. It will have the tax benefit where you don't have to pay both federal and the city tax in that case, right? So a lot of people would buy that. Well, especially wealthy people will buy that because they wanted some interest, right, without having to pay any taxes. But you could sell that at a loss, buy something very similar. In other words, buy
Yeah, in other words,
buy
sell
account-
Charlottesville
Right.
bond and then go buy
Jose,
Albemarle
Albemarle, whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that, where it's almost the same. You could have the same interest, whatever, and if you look at the credit credentials, they're very, very similar. So you could take the loss on that, right, and still earn the interest, right, on the other bond. You're not losing anything, right? So this is one year where you can actually do that, right? The issue is that some investment managers, when they look at bonds, they just simply go and throw all the money into a general bond fund, not thinking about what's the best strategy for my client from a perspective of what is this bond portfolio supposed to do in the asset
exactly.
allocation,
In other words,
right?
rather than dividing up the bond portion into, well, these are certain
Pieces.
corporate bonds. This is a bond with this maturity, a 0 to 5 year ETF, or this is a high yield bond ETF, and this is another high yield bond ETF with different characteristics.
With different maturities,
Yeah, a lot of
et cetera.
times they'll be lumped all together, and
Into-
here's your bond ETF that is the entire bond market.
Exactly.
And once that's the case, you can't do the tax loss harvesting because you will get nabbed by the IRS if you sell a fund that is the entire bond market, and then you buy another fund that is
There's
the entire bond market.
yeah. They'll
You
say,
get hit with the wash rule basically, which is a version of the wash rule, but the IRS will say you can't take the loss on this fund because you bought an identical fund.
Exactly. It's like when if let's say you have a loss on Apple, right? And you sell Apple and then buy right back in order to take the losses, which benefit your taxes, right? And buy right back the next
Can't do
day.
that.
You can't do that. They won't let you. You have to wait,
30
over 30
days.
days, right? So you're obviously at risk in the marketplace, right? In the bond market, though, there are opportunities. If you structure portfolios a certain way, this was a great year to do tax loss harvesting without really losing anything on interest, right? Just restructuring your portfolio. The other thing that I think a lot of managers don't do this, and again, there's a lot of focus always on equities, which is fantastic, which is important, right? But on the bond side, they become a little lazy, or they're not as knowledgeable as maybe they should be on the bond
Yeah.
side. But going forward,
I
there.
mean, that's one of the reasons we focus so much on the bond side for our clients at Emergent is because you had 35 years in bonds.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love it. It's what I enjoy doing. But there's the strategies for the year to come, next year. It's going to, just off the top of my head, there's so many strategies that we can do that's going to benefit our clients. That's incredible because, they're there, right? And in today's world, there's enough ETFs and mutual funds that allow you to structure a portfolio that can take benefits of changes in interest rates, yield curves, et cetera, that I think is something
If anything,
that...
would you say, given what's happened, despite the fact that obviously it's been a bad year for bonds in general, would you say there are probably more opportunities, more strategies out there available for next year than there were a year ago when rates was basically zero?
Oh, absolutely.
In other words,
So
the flip side of the fact that rates have gone up and prices have gone down is that there are probably more strategies available to you now than there were, back in 2020 when basically just rates had plummeted to zero everywhere.
Exactly. And if you remember well, one of the things we talked about at the beginning of this year was variable rate securities, which have done extremely well this year because as interest rates have gone up, these particular securities, their interest, right,
Also
their
goes
coupon
up.
has gone up, so it has benefit you, right? But yeah, we are in a situation now where the whole yield curve has changed, meaning that short-term rates are higher than long-term rates, which is typically not the case. That's abnormal. So there are opportunities in the market today that we haven't seen in decades, right? So to be able to take care of those opportunities, I think is good. So
Well, and
there's
it's so key, like you said, it's too often I think both people and managers sort of get tunnel vision with equities, right? And because that's right, in a given year, the majority of your return, right, will probably, good or bad, will probably come from the equity side.
Right.
In other words, if you have a great year and you're up 30%, it's probably because your stocks did well. And if you had a bad year and you're down 20%, it's probably because your stocks did poorly. So for the most part, I think that's why people get tunnel vision. But you lose out if you're not paying attention to the bond side and the ways in which you can generate additional income, or if you fail to
And
think about
return.
it, leave income on the table. But if you can generate, you might sit there and say, what I do, I switch things around, I'm generating 2% more yield. Well, that means if your stocks go down an extra 2%, you're fine.
Yeah.
Because just by switching things around with slight changes in risk, that's the interesting thing about the bonds. And sometimes it's not necessarily you're taking a huge amount of risk to get extra return. It's just a matter of being smart about where you're putting your money in the bond side. And if you could get another 2-3% in
not
income
only is income, right, but it's also total return. In other words, just like stocks, prices in bonds move up and down. So you can literally create structured portfolios where the prices will go in your favor, right? So you get the 3%, 4% interest, right, in addition to now a positive return, right? So you take that short term, long term. Sometimes it's, in a year you have to unwind that particular trade. My point is that there's just so many opportunities, I think, looking forward, in particular in the bond market, that it's worthwhile saying you got to focus on that area more than ever because they're there and don't let them go to waste, right? Granted, on the stock side, again, same thing. There's going to be tremendous opportunities just looking back what's happened. So, I always look at this was a down year. Every so often we have down years.
It's going to happen.
Exactly, but they also create enormous opportunities. And so you have to sit there instead of moan and groan that, gee, my portfolio was down 6% or 10% or whatever was down, right? Say, no, here's an opportunity where now I can reshuffle, restructure the portfolio, and really take advantage of what the market is giving me, so that next year I can benefit from that.
Exactly.
So.
You know, it's something we said a lot when people's portfolios were up tremendously in 2020, right? We said you need to be looking at your portfolio and deciding, is this the right level of risk for me?
Right.
Right? In other words, if you're sitting there with some massive gains because you bought 2 stocks that took off, you need to look at it and say, is this the right level of risk? Regardless of how I feel about those 2 stocks, is this the right level of risk for me? And the same thing applies now.
Sure.
In other words, don't worry about the fact that, the market had a bad year. You might be down 20% in your portfolio. The same goal applies, which is look at your portfolio. Is this the right level of risk for me?
Exactly.
Right? Because the direction of the market you can't control. It's beyond our ability to control the direction, whether the market goes up or down. Right? What we can control is the extent to which we are exposed to that upside of that down. What's the right level of risk for me? And
and the asset allocation.
And the asset allocation
And I
is
know
what determines
Nick will
that.
probably correct me on the number, but I think if you look at returns, asset allocation defines about like 90 to 94% of returns in portfolios. So that's why we always say asset allocation is so
It's so
important,
important.
right?
So
Did I get that right, Nick?
Oh, he's giving us thumbs up.
Okay.
We got it right.
He showed me an article,
know.
which we always knew that was the case. I just never knew how high that was.
Yeah, you knew it was a major factor, but
Yeah.
now they're doing studies
Yeah.
which reveal just how much of a factor that is.
Yeah.
The asset
So
allocation.
yes,
It's-
again, it's I'm very excited. This is for the last month or two, I know we've been doing a lot of work
A lot of research.
and we're creating opportunities and setting up portfolios. So it's been busy, but it's fun. It's just a fun busy because we see what's out there and what can be done.
Exactly. You have to look. Where am I now? Don't look at what happened. Where am I now? What do I need to do going forward on my
Yeah.
portfolio? And
Yeah.
doing the research, because that's so key. When there's strategies and opportunities, a lot of them out there, that's when the research really comes in, because you can't just ride the wave up. You got to
No.
figure out what do I need to do to really take advantage of what's out there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's been nice to be back.
Nice to have you back.
And like I said, as you know, from Thanksgiving on, it's just.
This is
it's
your
just-
favorite time of year.
Yeah, I just love
yeah.
it. It's just, you could just feel the energy in the air, the
joy.
lights, the joy. It's the part of life that I love.
Absolutely. And we're glad to have you here. Really appreciate our 2 guests that were
Oh, yeah.
fantastic.
They were.
We're going to have some more great guests next week. We're going to be joined. Carolyn from Herbert's Wine Jelly is
Oh,
back.
she's back. Okay.
She's coming back on to talk a little more, as well as Aaron Mallory from Farmhouse Coffee. So
Okay.
they're going to be joining us. So two more entrepreneurs joining us next week on the show. As always, love being here on the I Love CVille Network set. Thank you, Judah, behind the camera.
Always.
Congratulations once again to Jerry.
Absolutely,
And,
yes.
We have a new
He
member
did.
of the I Love CVille family, you could say. Maybe another future I Love CVille host. You never know. Thank you to Emergent Financial Services, of course, and to all our partners at Credit Series Insurance, Aquasivo Hand Car Wash, Castle Hill Cider, Forward Adelante Business Alliance, and of course the Gym Seville having their Health and Wellness Expo on December 3rd, this Saturday.
That's important. Yeah, that's good.
So be sure to check that out. We look forward to seeing all of you next week. We're always thankful for you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the great comments and people who joined us this morning. As always, be sure to send us any entrepreneurs that you think would do well to be on the show, would love to be on the show.
And one other thing, don't forget to like and share.
Oh, don't forget to like and share. There you go.
See, I
There
get
you
old,
go.
but once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while you remember it. So be sure to like and share. Send us entrepreneurs that you think would love to be on our show. There's never any cost to come on the show and be an entrepreneur and an interview. So we just love highlighting all the amazing things going on in our community. Thank you again for watching us. We look forward to seeing you all next week. But until that time, as we always say on the show, hasta mañana. Yeah, it's fun to be back.
Absolutely.
It was a fun show.